Hey, what's going on, guys? Okay, so we're back for the next chapter in our Crimson Vow limited review series. This time we're going to go through all of the mythics and the rares in white from a limited perspective. And at the end, stay tuned because we're going to go through the top three.
First up is Welcoming Vampire. 1 white, 2 colorless for a 2/3 flying vampire. And then whenever one or more other creatures with power 2 or less enter the battlefield under your control, you draw a card only once per turn. Excellent card. This is exactly what you want in a white aggressive deck. White, black, white, red. It's going to be giving you the card advantage you want. It itself is good value. A 2/3 flyer is good aggression for 3. Excellent rare. I'm happy to first pick this and build around it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it doesn't need too much building around. You're probably going to have a bit of that, but this is a great example of the type of card where it's not going to win you the game, but it's going to facilitate you winning the game. Like there's going to be other mythics and rares that will show you that this is going to win the game itself. But this card won't necessarily win the game, but it'll get you so far ahead that you'll win through card advantage.
You'll win the game from this card advantage.
Right. Exactly. I'm with you. Okay. By invitation only is 3 white for a sorcery rare. So choose a number between 0 and 13. Each player sacrifices that many creatures. So this is great. So it's a board sweeper that you get to choose how many creatures die. So that's always going to be better, because if you want the whole board exiled, even if they have a massive number of creatures, you can do it. If you only, let's say you have 5, they have 3, you can just pick 3, you get 2 remaining. It's great. So it's actually just better than a blanket board sweeper. So very good card.
Yeah, huge. Board sweepers win games unlimited. And the fact that it's not just, for your example, 5 and 3, you keep your 2 best creatures. Puts you so far ahead. Yeah, this is a great card. Love it.
Totally.
Up next, we have Hallowed Haunting. 2 white and 2 colorless for an enchantment. Reads, as long as you control 7 or more enchantments, creatures you control have flying and vigilance. And then whenever you cast an enchantment spell, create a white spirit cleric creature token with this creature's power and toughness are equal to the number of spirits you control. Unplayable, in my opinion.
Wasn't worth reading it.
Yeah, just you see this art. Looks like Azkaban from Harry Potter. Just ignore this card. Go to the next one.
Yeah, appreciate the art, but then move on.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, we have the Hopeful Initiate. So he is a humble 1 white mana to cast for a creature, human, warlock, rare. He's a 1/2, and he has the training ability. Now, he has the ability to pay 2 and a single white to remove 2/1 counters from among creatures you control. So you can, obviously utilize 2 different creatures to destroy target artifact or enchantment. So a 1/2 with training for 1 is pretty good. And I think, the fact that he's a human, we've already seen, some synergies with humans. I think the white deck is going to have a lot of human synergies, especially green-white. So that's good. He'll fit into that deck. This is obviously not a bomb. I mean, he's going to occasionally do some cool things with that activated ability. But really, what you get here is mainly a 1/2 for a 1/2 with training for 1.
Yeah, I think a 1/2 training for 1 is fine. It's going to make most of my decks. I'm not super excited that if I open this up, pick 1, pack 1. But if I'm already in white and it gets past me 4th or 5th pick, I'm happy to take it. And occasionally you'll destroy an artifact or enchantment. Yeah.
And also keep in mind the training is better because it's coming down so early. So you can start attacking earlier, build up. You have more time to build up, assuming he's in your opening hand.
Right. Next up, we have Katilda, Hart, Martyr, which is 2 white and 1 colorless. For a star legendary creature spirit warlock. It has flying, lifelink, and protection from vampires, which is very relevant in this set. It reads, their power and toughness are equal to the number of permanents you control that are spirits and or enchantments. So depending, you're going to have to look at your deck as you're drafting, see how many enchantments you're actually planning on running, how many spirits are in your deck. This alone comes down as a 1/1 for 3 with flying lifelink. Obviously not great. If you have 6 or 7 spirits in your deck with 1 or 2 enchantments, it becomes much more powerful. It does have a backside, but I'm not sold on the front side.
Yeah, I'm with you so far.
And then the backside is Katilda's Rising Dawn. Same thing, except as an enchanted creature, has flying and lifelink and protection from vampires and gets +X/+X under the same conditions, depending how many spirits and or enchantments you have. And this, of course, is an enchantment. So kind of same thing. If you're at that 6-7 spirit level with a couple enchantments, this is great to play. You're going to beef up one of your other creatures. If you're playing a deck that has a lot of vampires, you're going to take over the game. The lifelink will become relevant. on its own, this side isn't terrible because it still gives flying, lifelink, and protection from vampires onto whatever blanket you have with at least a +1/+1. So this side is much better as just a pure enchantment, but we all know enchantments aren't that great in limited. So it's okay. I'm happy to play it if I'm in white, but I don't think I'm transitioning to white for this card.
Yeah, I think overall, considering both sides of the cards, the fact that you get to play this twice is going to be like, especially on this backside, you play this on your biggest creature. That's strong. Flying lifelink pro vampire. I mean, that can make a huge difference in the game. So I think, yeah, I agree. It's not so good that I'm going to be, jumping out of my chair to open this, but I'm definitely playing this card. I mean, this is strong.
Right.
Yeah. Great. Okay, next we have not so strong Lantern Flare. So 1 and a white for an instant rare. So we're ignoring the cleave cost for now. So this will deal X damage to target creature or planeswalker, and you gain X life. And X is the number of creatures you control. So that's what you're going to get if you pay 2 at instant speed. So not bad. I mean, it's a conditional removal spell, meaning conditional as in if you're way behind, you don't have much if anything on the board. It's doing nothing for you. Now you can pay the cleave cost, and the cleave cost is X red white. So you have the additional type of mana, which makes it even more specific. And in that case, it's just deal X damage to a creature or planeswalker, and you gain X life. So it is a nice swing. I mean, let's say you play this late game for 7. You hit them for you take out their best creature with the 5 damage. You gain 5. That's a big swing. They ask a lot, though. I mean, I will. This is a card I'm happy to play. Instant speed removal is great, but I just don't like how it is conditional. I would say probably better than your average removal spell, but not the best of the best.
Yeah, I think if I'm in just a white X deck that's not white red, I'm going to play it. You're going to kill a 2/2 or a 3/3. Not that great for a rare slot, especially if you're picking it early in the draft. If you're white red, obviously it becomes better, can take out larger creatures. It's important that you are gaining life, so it can do some big swings. If this red, you could deal damage to any target, including target player, I'd be a much bigger fan. I think just in terms of being overpriced in terms of rare slot, I wouldn't be happy to open this card. I'd probably go for a strong removal spell.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. Decent, but nothing crazy.
Okay, so next you have Thalia, Guardian of Thraben. 2 mana, 1 white for a 2/1 first strike, and non-creature spells cost 1 more to cast. It's a fair card. I mean, 2/1 first strike, it's good for 2. And then delaying them a little bit is good. Much more relevant and constructed. This is not a bomb. This is not going to win you a game. But if this is what your 2 drops look like, you're happy to play it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I agree. Fine card for limited, but this has constructed written all over it, in my opinion. Okay, next we have the lovely Saguardius Summons. 4 white for an enchantment rare. Creatures you control with +1 counters on them have base power and toughness 4/4, have flying, and are angels in addition to their other subtypes. So, at face value, this looks like if you have a deck that enables this to go off, where you're reliably putting +1 counters on your creatures, this is going to be totally insane. But the problem is, I think most of the time it's going to be either bad or mediocre. So you really have to build around this, and then you fall into the trap of, okay, you know what, pick 1, pack 1. I open this, I'm going to take every single spell I can find that has a +1 counter on it. And then you're going to have a game where you're playing all these cards you didn't really want to play in the first place just to enable this, and you never draw it. Or it gets destroyed because in this format there's going to be a lot of enchantment removal because it's a very enchantment heavy set. So I think this card looks like this high and mighty, really go off. And when it does go off, it's going to be crazy. But I think most of the time it's going to be a trap.
Yeah, I agree. When this goes off, you have 2 or 3 creatures with +1/+1 counters. You're going to win the game that turn. It's going to be awesome. You're going to feel great that you drafted it. I'm just not a fan of 6 mana cards that can come down and do absolutely nothing on the board. You have 3 creatures on the board, none of which have a counter. You play this does nothing. Waste of a card slot. I don't see myself. I wouldn't create a deck around this. If I happen to already be in this kind of deck and it gets past me late, I'll take it. But I'm in agreement. I'm not a big fan.
Mm-hmm.
Coming up next is Voice of the Blessed. 2 mana, both white for a 2/2, and reads whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. And then as long as it has 4 or more counters on it, it has flying and vigilance. And then once it has 10 or more counters on it, it has indestructible. So it's an Ajani's Pride Mate, 2/2 for 2, a bit harder to cast, gets a +1/+1 counter whenever you gain life. I mean, those always see play, those are good. This is a bit more restrictive, requiring 2 white mana. At 4, +1/+1 counter, so if you can trigger 4 life gains, you have a 6/6 flying vigilance. Excellent. I don't see the 10 counters coming into play often. If you're not winning with an 11/11 flying vigilance, I don't think gaining indestructible is what's going to put you over the top. But it's a card, if I'm heavy white, I'm happy to play it. I don't know if I'm pick one, pack one taking this and trying to force a heavy white deck.
Right, and I think the only thing I would add to that is just to be very clear. If you don't gain life, this is just a 2/2 for white.
Unplayable.
And that is unplayable. Yeah, so that's a very specific casting cost for a vanilla 2/2. If you can't gain life, you cannot play this card.
Right. If it was one colorless, one white, you could include it in most decks, even with few life gain triggers. But if you're going to pay this casting cost, you have to make sure you have the life gain triggers in your deck.
Right. But in a life gain deck, admittedly, it's going to be awesome.
Right.
Okay, next we've got the Wedding Announcement, a 2-face card. So 2 and a white gets you an enchantment rare. At the beginning of your end step, put an invitation counter on Wedding Announcement. If you attack with 2 or more creatures this turn, draw a card. Otherwise, create a 1/1 white human creature token. Then, if Wedding Announcements has 3 or more invitation counters on it, transform it. And when it transforms, it becomes a +1 to all of your creatures. So an anthem. So basically, this is pretty good. I mean, if all you did was pay 3 mana and then you got the backside of the card, that would be good. That's a rare level card. Now, what this does is delay the benefit of getting this +1/+1 to your team, but in the interim, it will either be drawing you cards or making creatures. So it's a very good card. It's not so good that I'm going to be doing everything I can to play it, but I will go out of my way to play it because it is very solid.
I'm actually high on this card. I think I would play a card that said a 3-mana card that created a 1/1 every turn. I'd probably play that. A 3-mana card that drew me a card every turn. With some stipulations, I'd probably play that. And then a 3-mana anthem, I'd also play that. So kind of regardless how this is going off, I'm happy to have paid 3 mana for it. And so I think it's great.
Yep, very solid.
Next, this is our top 3 list. Coming in at number 3, we have the Faithbound Judge. 2 white and 1 colorless for a 4/4 Spirit Soldier who has Defender, Flying, and Vigilance. So at the beginning of your upkeep, if the creature has 2 or fewer judgment counters on it, you put a judgment counter on it. Then as long as it has 3 or more counters on it, it can attack as though it didn't have Defender. So at base, you're going to get a 3/3, a 4/4 for 3, Defender, Flying, Vigilance, which is a fine wall. Obviously, walls aren't great in Limited, or Constructed for that matter. But after 3 turns, you can start attacking. So a 4/4 Flying Vigilance for 3 is excellent value. Delaying it a few turns isn't that big of a deal. And then you can pay 7 mana total to disturb it after it gets killed.
Mm-hmm.
So looking at the backside, you get Sinner's Judgment, which is an enchantment or a curse. So you enchant the player. So at the beginning of your upkeep, you put a judgment counter on it. Then if there are 3 or more judgment counters on it, the enchanted player loses the game. So now it's just a 3-turn clock. So if they happen to kill it, which they're going to want to because a 4/4 Flying Vigilance needs to be dealt with, you can pay your disturb costs, put them on a 3-turn clock regardless of what happens. I'm a big fan of this card. I think it's going to win a lot of games.
That's for sure. That's for sure. They made it a mythic for a reason. Anything that has this clause where you just win the game in an amount of time, certainly powerful. I think both sides of the card are solid. The 4/4 Flying Vigilance, very good. Even if it is a defender for a couple turns, still very good. And the whole idea, I think, there is that's a defensive card for a reason, because ultimately you want to get to this side and you want to force basically force the extended game, and then around ideally if everything goes according to plan, turn 10, turn 11, this will seal the deal and the game is over. So very solid, very solid. So we'll move on to number 2 on our list. Okay, next we have the Cemetery Protector. So 2 white gets you a creature, human soldier, mythic rare. This is a 3/4 flash. When he enters the battlefield, exile a card from a graveyard. Whenever you play a land or cast a spell, if it shares a card type with the exiled card, create a 1/1 white human creature token. So So a 3/4 flash for 4. Let's ignore the abilities for a second. 3/4 flash for 4 is okay. That's definitely playable. You can eat something, ideally, best case scenario, you're eating like a 3/3. Not bad, not bad. So adding this ability on, where while it's in play and you have that card exiled, you're generating 1/1s. Very good. I mean, that's what puts it into this top 3 list. So I think, you're not investing that much. All you're putting forward is this 4 mana, and you can potentially eat a creature. You have a nice 4 toughness creature, and you're getting an army of 1/1s depending on how long it's on the board. So I think overall, very solid card and very reliable card.
I agree. There's not a lot of magic to this card. It's just a reasonable body at a reasonable price that if you're on a stalled board state, it's just going to create 1/1s as the game goes on and give you that wide board or blockers you need as you're attacking in with this. It's just a good card overall.
Yep.
Coming in at number 1 is Savior of Allenbach. So 2 white and 1 colorless for a 1/2 human soldier with training. And then whenever this creature trains, you exile up to 1 other target creature from the battlefield or creature card from a graveyard. In general, you're going to use the battlefield trigger. And then when it leaves the battlefield, you put those onto the battlefield under their owner's control. So the 2 ways you do this is you attack in, you train, and you exile their best creature they have. Excellent. The downside is when he gets removed, they get the creature back. The other option is if one of your best creatures have been destroyed, you exile your own creature, and now they're really hesitant to kill the Savior because you'll get your best creature back. So you can, after a couple of attacks, you can go both ways, where there's disadvantage for them killing your own creature, but he'll take over the game if he's allowed to keep attacking and training. Love this card. That's why he's at number 1.
Yeah, absolutely. So this card does so much for 3 mana. It's crazy. That point you made at the end, I think it's what really put him over the top into the top position where even if they don't have good targets, even if it's early in the game, they don't have things you want to remove. If you have anything in the graveyard, you could just pull that, and then they get into this kind of checkmate where they have to leave this guy on the battlefield, or else you get this army of creatures back. So very solid, very solid. I mean, so just 3 mana for all that is a great deal. So anyway, so that's all we got. That's number 1.
Yeah, so that's our review of Crimson Vow, limited rares and mythics, including our top 3. If you like the video, please leave a comment, subscribe, leave a like. If you have any comments or suggestions, please let us know. We are coming out with the other color guides in the next few days and active drafts on Thursday, so stay tuned.
You got it. See you soon.